was asked to speak today, I asked about how much time did I have, and they told me about 3 to 4 minutes. So I don't want to waste my time talking about the other guy. We all know and have met the other guy in some form or fashion. It is the other guy that resists voting in favor of the people. It is the other guy that gets to sip in the lap of luxury while you are struggling to make $1 out of 15 cents. It is the other guy that has phenomenal health care, all while telling you that you do not deserve to have access to health care during a pandemic. So I'm not going to spend my time talking about the other guy. Instead, I'm going to talk about my friend, Charles Booker. I'm going to spend my time talking about a man that serves the people, a man that isn't afraid to dwell among the people, a man that stands with community, a man that fought to get insulin for those that were dealing with diabetes, a man that stood side by side with teachers when they were fighting for their pensions, a man that stood with community as we rallied for justice for Breonna Taylor, a man that stood with coal miners that fought to get their paychecks after they did a hard day's work. I'm speaking about a man that ain't afraid to dwell in the hood or the hollow. I'm talking about Charles Booker. Because he understands the bigger picture, and that is what I need you to understand. I took this quote from the movie Malcolm X. You've been had. You've been took. You've been hoodwinked, bamboozled, led astray, run amok. You see, that is what the other guy does. They make you think that it is us that need to be fighting each other, when in reality, we need to stand together, and that is when we become unstoppable. But let me be real. The problem is many of you think that you are okay. You have gotten comfortable with your 6-figure job, but COVID-19 should have taught you that you can have a job today and be jobless tomorrow. You can have health care today and be staring at a $20,000 hospital bill that you can't pay tomorrow. You can be eating filet mignon tonight and eating hamburger helper tomorrow. So don't look down on anyone, because many of us are just a paycheck away from a disaster. We soon learned in this pandemic that it wasn't the CEOs that we turned to. It wasn't the venture capitalists that we turned to. It wasn't the man on Wall Street that we turned to, and I'm not knocking them. But in times of crisis, we turn to the grocery store workers. We turn to the workers stocking the shelves with toilet paper. We turn to the sanitation workers. We turn to the CNAs in the hospital. We turn to the nurses. We turn to the doctors, and we said, help us. We turn to the everyday people that get up and work immensely hard for little reward. We turn to those that we often overlook to keep this nation running. The working class is the backbone of this nation. So do not let your job lull you into a false sense of security. Please know that if you are 2 to 5 paychecks away from a financial crisis, get on board with Charles. If you have a pre-existing condition and you need health care, get on board with Charles. If you are tired of fighting just to exist, get on board with Charles. If you are sick of working just enough to be poor, get on board with Charles. If you work in a restaurant that you cannot afford to eat in, get on board with Charles. If you work night shift in a hospital that you can't even afford to be sick in, get on board with Charles. If you work in a department store that you cannot even afford to shop in, get on board with Charles. And let me be clear in this last statement. If you are poor, if you are middle class, and if you are white, trust me, your best bet is to stand with us and get on board with Charles. And let me be clear. Know that it is not confusion that makes this nation pause. It is not confusion that makes this nation bow down. It is the organization of people that come together. That is when this nation will tremble. So stand strong, stand together, stand with Charles, and we can change this world. Thank you.
Keep it going for Hannah Drake. Put your hands together for Evan Westfall.
Hello, Louisville. You know, with this pandemic, we've been looking for a light at the end of the tunnel, and the joy of this shining day, despite the threat of rain, feels like we might just be getting there to me. My name's Evan Westfall. I'm a Louisvillian, an activist, an organizer, sometimes campaign staffer. I served as a delegate for Bernie to the Democratic National Convention in 2016, and I was a victory captain helping organize Kentuckians for action in the 2020 campaign. Bernie's presidential campaigns made me and millions of others believe that a new world is possible, not only because of what Bernie talked about, but because of the effort and passion we saw thousands of others give. 20 years from now, I hope we can look back on this time as the beginning of one of the most profound political shifts in the history of the United States. Many of us have been out in front of the majority in recognizing the need, the deep moral need for profound change in this country. We've experienced a crescendo of tragic events, the cruelty of millions without health insurance, the absence of paid leave for so many people, cataclysmic weather events due to climate change, the callous murder of Breonna Taylor, George Floyd, and many, many others, violent racist attacks against our sisters and brothers, decaying infrastructure and toxic drinking water, and the cruelty of such incredible disparities of wealth while so many Americans are forced to scrape by on starvation wages without the tools they need to climb out. I truly believe that eyes are beginning to open, partially because of these tragedies and also because of what we have done. The blood, sweat, and tears of righteous protesters have made this city a powerful focal point in the call for justice. And in so many ways, more and more people are recognizing that the wheels are coming off our country and that the ride wasn't great for too many of us to begin with. Now, more politicians are talking about valuing work above wealth. Transformational policies to correct deep systemic issues are seriously being considered. People are waking up. Just this week, while the spotlight of the world was on our city, we saw workers who make the Kentucky Derby happen stand up and demand decent pay for the work they do. We must continue that fight to strengthen unions and reshape the balance of power and benefit in the workplace. It's clear, our politics, the policies we have been supporting, demands for equity in the fight for social, racial, economic, environmental justice, the moral demands we have been making for change are illuminating a path forward for this country. These changes are something that not long ago I feared we might never see in our lifetimes, but have always maintained hope. But hope without hard work to effect change is useless. And standing here in this deeply flawed, so-called compassionate city that I love, compassion without action is worthless. Make no mistake, many in Washington and talking heads on TV have begun to speak in a similar political language as us. But we know the system is still rigged, and big systemic failures will take time and immense effort to correct. And that's exactly why we must continue fighting even harder than ever before. We've opened the door to bold progressive policy becoming a reality. We've helped elect the first leaders of a new generation of politicians. We must continue this work. And that is exactly why we should be so excited about the possibility of Charles Booker running for Senate. And for us here in Kentucky to help grow this new generation of leadership and ideas that will shape the future of our country. So we need you, your voice, your door knocking, your phone banking and texting, whatever financial contributions you can comfortably share, and the grassroots leadership you can provide for others. You will power this transformation. America's people are worth fighting for, and we know Kentucky is worth fighting for. We have a long way to go, and we're asking you now to commit your strength to this fight. Thank you.
Please welcome Ashley Snyder.
Sorry. I'm a proud third-generation union worker. Yeah, Louisville's a union town, right? Thank you. My grandfather, he actually helped organize IUE Local 761 at GE Appliance Park back in 1953. Him and his labor, both as a union leader and as a maintenance worker, gave him access to the American dream. He worked 40 hours a week and made a family-sustaining wage, and his son, my father, followed in his footsteps and worked at GE for 38 years. My father also lived a comfortable middle-class life on the wages and benefits his union job provided, is now retired, and able to live with dignity on his pension. So when I started working at GE back in 2008, I thought I could expect the same lifestyle that this job had afforded both my father and my grandfather, but I was in for a rude awakening. Working doubles, sacrificing precious time with my son Jackson, and living off of ramen noodles, not knowing if I could pay my bills at the end of the month was my life working at Appliance Park. Corporate America has been waging on an all-out war on working people. For years, they have chipped away at our rights to bargain fair contracts, organize unions in workplaces, and go on strike. They've rigged the law so that they can get richer off of our labor while we struggle to survive. Throughout this pandemic, these companies has touted us as essential workers, but they've treated us as if we're disposable. They thank us for risking our lives with pizza parties, right? And empty words instead of hazard pay, which is what we deserve, and safe working conditions. Half of non-union workers in this country want a union, but our labor laws are so backwards that corporations like Amazon can straight up steal elections without impunity. Enough is enough. We need to build worker power, and we need leaders like Senator Sanders and Charles Booker to help us rewrite these rules for working people. Charles supports legislation like the PRO Act, which would totally change the game for labor in this country by strengthening our rights to bargain, organize, and strike. Rand Paul does not. Just days after the PRO Act was introduced in the Senate, Paul introduced a union-busting bill that would make freeloading right-to-work legislation a federal law. It doesn't have to be this way. Kentuckians deserve leaders who will fight for us, not for corporations. Through militant organizing, the labor movement fought for weekends and an 8-hour workday. We fought for safe working conditions and a minimum wage. The labor movement was built by everyday working people like my grandfather believing and fighting for dignity, and it's up to workers like you and me to keep up that fight. If you want to get the PRO Act passed, if we want a $15 minimum wage increase, health care for all, and an economy that works for workers, not the 1%, we need leaders like Senator Sanders and Charles fighting for us in Washington. I don't know about you, but I don't want my kids to have to struggle the way I've had to. I didn't want them to have to worry about making it to work on a Friday because their paycheck hasn't cleared yet and they don't have gas in the tank. I don't want them to have that tightness in their chest at the end of the month because they don't know if they're going to be able to make rent, even after pulling doubles all week. We eventually had to move back in with my parents, like many Americans do, because after working 60 to 80 hours a week, it wasn't enough. I wake up every day and do this work because I believe that we have the power to change our reality. I want my children to live in a world where we have power, where our labor is respected, and where we as working people can thrive. If they get sick, I want them to be able to go to the doctors and not worry about a copay. If they have kids, I want them to be able to say, yes, they can join the basketball team because they can afford the uniforms. I want them to be happy, and I want to work a normal 40-hour work week. Live a comfortable life because they all deserve that. We all do. I'm proud to be with you all today and grateful for the opportunity to fight alongside you, and thank you.
Keep it going. And please put your hands together for Charles Booker.
Hey, this feels a little familiar. First of all, I want to thank all of you all for coming out. The rain doesn't stop a movement. And I want to honor you all in this moment before I even get started. And I have someone that's special that I brought along that I know you all want to hear from as well. I want to start the right way. I need to tell all of you all that I love you. I mean that. I mean it from the bottom of my heart. It is only by grace that I'm on my feet and I'm before you all. And it's because of your strength, your determination, your love, your sacrifice, your heart, your light that I have hope. And I'm just a young kid from 35th and Market, down that way, that had the audacity to believe that things could be better, and you saw me. And so this feels really familiar. If you remember the last time we were on a stage like this, the whole country was watching. And we were saying something like, from the hood to the holler. We were telling everybody that Kentucky matters. They never gave us a chance. They didn't think we could do something big in a place like Kentucky. They didn't think change was possible in a place like Kentucky. They don't believe in us, but we believe in us. So I got a little bit of nostalgia here standing on this stage. We were starting to tell a story, and I think we're not done telling that story, if you understand what I'm saying. So, look, y'all know me by now. I got to embarrass the women that make me who I am. So, my mom, my super shero, Evangelist Earletta Hearn. Y'all saw her dancing last time. We got more dancing to do. And my daughters, Kaylin and Preston, my bosses. Kaylin's sitting back there looking like Bernie Sanders, you know, when he was sitting on the with your arms crossed. This is dad. Look, I can do this, right? Dads can do this. And then the woman that allowed me to pursue my dreams. Look, I know I don't deserve you. You let me get on this stage and you get behind me, and I always get emotional when I talk about you because you mean that much to me. My wife, Tanisha, my partner, she doesn't talk as much as me, but she's the voice in the family. And if you look at her shirt for a few seconds, you'll tell that we have another warrior on the way. Baby Justice is on the way. We decided to name our baby Justice out of dedication to y'all, because that's what we're still fighting for. And I wanted to make my commitment to my child, my children, that as long as I'm alive, I'm going to be fighting so that they can have humanity and justice and pursue their dreams. So we got work to do. Okay, so this is Sunday. I come from a family of ministers. My mom is assistant pastor. We got the bishop here. My pastor's here. I come from a long line of ministers. This is Sunday. On Sunday, after church, we would all go over Grandma's house. Grandma's house was our rallying point. We would go there. We would love on one another. We would build community. We would get something to eat, of course. We would figure out what we needed to do. And sometimes if somebody was being disrespected, we'd figure out how we needed to handle it because family takes care of one another. We would go over Grandma's house to rally. My grandma's gone, and my granddad's gone. So I can't go over Grandma's house no more. But being here with y'all feels like being over Grandma's house again. This feels like Grandma's house to me. Because today is a perfect day for a rally. Today is a great day for a rally. Not because things are easy, not because everything's perfect, because I got a heavy heart right now. A lot of y'all, you may have seen my post over the weekend during Derby events. One of my former classmates lost her life. Beautiful young lady, had children, had dreams. She lost her life to gun violence. And I've been trying to find the words to give you all a part of me that could be of any value to you. And I'm not standing here in a moment of celebration for how great things are. I'm standing here in a moment of celebration for the fact that we're ready for the work we have to do. We're ready to honor Kashmir, to honor Breonna Taylor, to honor Mr. McAtee, to honor Tyler, to honor every single person, every single one of us that has ever felt like our voices were not being heard, that our challenges were not being met. We're ready. And, y'all know a little bit about my story, but I like to frame it this way. I've lived the struggle that a lot of politicians talk about. Mitch McConnell does not care about. Rand Paul, he calls himself an eye doctor, he can't see. I have walked through a lot of the struggles that let me know that we don't face hard times because we're lazy. We don't face difficulty because we don't pray enough, because we don't work hard enough. There's a system at play that is determining who wins and who loses, and for the most part has determined that Kentucky should lose. It ain't right. And it doesn't have to be that way. One, I know we're more than conquerors. Two, I know that together we are unstoppable. Three, I know we're ready for this moment and we're going to transform our future. So no, it doesn't have to stay that way, and it won't stay that way because we are standing now. As a Commonwealth, we're standing now. And I'm proud. I'm so proud. I'm proud of us. I'm proud of this Commonwealth in spite of our shameful, ridiculous, embarrassing leaders. I'm proud of us. We're here today not to just rally for the sake of feeling good, but to get ready for the work that comes after we leave here. We are rallying here because we want everybody to have health care. Nobody should have to ration their insulin like I've had to do. We're rallying here because everybody should have a living wage. We know that $15 is the floor. Be serious. We want everybody to have money in their pocket to make decisions in their lives. We want everybody to have fresh, healthy food. We want everybody to have a roof over their head because housing is a right. We want everybody to surpass and pursue their dreams because we're fully and equitably funding public education. We want everybody to have a good paying job because we're standing for organized labor. We want everybody to have clean air and clean water because we know we not only need a Green New Deal, we need a Kentucky New Deal. We need to take our future back. That's why we're here. That's why we're rallying. That's why we need an agenda for working families. Because, folks, right now, and you all know this, in Washington we have 2 U.S. senators that do not care whether you live or die. And I know you know that. They don't care whether the bottom is falling out for you during this pandemic. They're going to block those stimulus checks you need. They don't care that unemployment was at a historic level in our Commonwealth. They're going to vote against extending benefits. They don't care that you need health care so that you can take care of your family. They're going to vote against expanding health care benefits. They're going to give tax cuts to their friends. They're going to kick you off the cliff. I can't stand it. I can't stand it. And that's why I decided, because what citizen leaders do, we take a stand when a stand needs to be made. When Breonna Taylor's door was busted down, all of our doors were busted down. So what did? We took a stand. And ever since then, every single day, we have had folks lifting their voices up in this city, in this Commonwealth, and across this country, demanding justice, not just for Breonna, but for all of us, because that's what we do. When the storms hit and the flood waters rise and our power gets cut out, we stand up for one another. We help folks get groceries. We send love and support. We were making thousands of calls to East Kentucky to take care of our family in the holler, because from the hood to the holler, we are all in this thing together. We have so much more in common than we do different, that if we stand together and lean into our common bonds, we can do anything. We can transform Kentucky. Of course we can. Of course we can. I believe so much. I believe it's in my belly. We here rallying for it. I'm so excited about what we can do together that I launched an exploratory for U.S. Senate. I believe in you so much. I believe in Kentucky so much that I'm going to give my all to you. And I said, I want to consider doing what people think is impossible. I want to tell a story about what we can do to change the narrative for our future, to make sure that poverty is not something that I have to tell baby Justice about, but it can be something she reads about because it's in the past. That we can do the work of grabbing racism, structural systemic racism, and pulling it up by the roots, because we know it's real. We know it undergirds this country. We're not going to look away and say racism doesn't exist. We're going to take it head on because we want to heal. We want justice. We want a better Kentucky. So we're going to do that deep work. So I'm thanking you in advance. I'm thanking you in advance. The DOJ is looking at the city of Louisville. My city, my home, all my family, my 70-plus cousins, all of us in this city, saying that everybody should be treated like a human being, that we deserve the governments that we pay for, the agencies we pay for, to protect us and to be accountable to us and not kill us. And this is not something to be joyous about, because we're acknowledging structural ills that have gone on for too long. But it is something to be resolved about, because we know that the whole country realizes that things have to change here, and we're ready for it. And so as we celebrate and embrace what it means to rally together, to come together as family, to love on one another, lean on one another, hold one another accountable, let us leave from this place resolved, fired up, ready to go, ready to dig in, ready to lead at every level of government, ready to fight for change, so much so that if it means we got to run, we'll run. If it means we got to step in and get leadership out of the way that's not really leadership, we'll do that. I hope you feel that. So I got some questions for you, because I got a special friend here that I'm excited to hear from. I'm going to just ask you some questions. I think I know the answers to this. Do you believe that Kentucky deserves a brighter future? Do you believe that justice should mean something and not just be a word? Do you believe that we can end poverty? Do you believe that we can come together from the hood to the holler and transform our future? Do you believe that Kentucky can do anything, including sending a young black man from the hood to Washington to fight for you? Do you believe that now is the time we gotta stand together? Do you believe we need to do it now? Do you believe we need to do it right now? Do you believe we need to do it yesterday? If you believe, I need you to do two things for me. Just two things right now. I need you to go to charlesbooker.org. That's my website. I need you all to go there to sign up to connect with me, support how you can, but let the country know that this is not a fluke. Let the country know this is not a joke. Let the country know that now is the time. Let the country know don't ignore Kentucky anymore. Let the country know that we're ready. And then the second thing I need you to do, is get ready for Bernie Sanders. Look, I love y'all. I'm fired up. Let's hear from the senator from Vermont, the chair of the Senate Budget Committee. Let's show them what Kentucky's all about, and let's keep fighting, y'all. This is our time to rally. This is our time.
Louisville, thank you very much. Let me thank all of you for coming out here today. And hopefully the next time I'm back, we're not going to have to wear these damn masks. And by the way, with the new administration, we are making progress in crushing this pandemic. I also want to thank Charles Booker, not just for being here today, but for showing this state and this country what grassroots activism can mean. And despite being heavily outspent, Charles ran a campaign that the whole country looked at. And I have a feeling that the next time around, the results are going to be different. And I'm also, on a personal note, delighted to be here at the Muhammad Ali Museum. And I've got to tell you that Muhammad Ali was a hero to me, not just because he was one of the great heavyweight champions of all time, but maybe more importantly, he was a man of extraordinary courage. You all know that he gave up 3 years and millions of dollars in his fighting career because he had the courage to say no, he wasn't going to fight in Vietnam. So there's a lot, and on top of that, at a time of increasing racism and xenophobia and anti-Muslim activity in this country, if you go into that museum, you find that Muhammad Ali was a very proud Muslim. But the reason I am here today is not just to say hello to Charles or to remember the great Muhammad Ali. I'm here for a very different and very simple reason. The senior senator from the state of Vermont, Mitch McConnell, is not just Kentucky's senator. Until a few months ago, as you all know, he was the majority leader of the United States Senate. And my God, I am so delighted that today he's only the minority leader. And by the way, we owe that to two great Senate candidates in Georgia. And what they did in Georgia, you could do in Kentucky. But Senator McConnell remains today, as minority Republican leader, the highest-ranking Republican elected official in the country, a man with enormous power. And what I want to do now, which I think as a nation we don't do enough, is to simply compare Senator McConnell's ideology, his Republican ideology, his votes, his actions, and his vision for America with the progressive vision for America. And our vision is that the government should represent all of the people, not just the 1%. Our vision believes that the foundations of government should rest on the pillars of justice, economic justice, racial justice, social justice, environmental justice. That's what we believe. And in order to make an effective comparison between Senator McConnell's views and ideology and ours, let me begin by telling you what you already know. And that is that we are living today in an unprecedented moment in American history, a moment that our children and grandchildren will be reading about in their history books. We have, as a people, endured the worst public health crisis in more than 100 years. We have lost almost 600,000 fellow Americans in every state in this country, and many millions more have become ill as a result of the COVID virus. We have experienced during this period, this last year, the worst economic collapse since the Great Depression of the 1930s. We have seen during this last year millions of Americans marching in the streets to end systemic racism and police brutality, something that unfortunately the people of Louisville are more than familiar with. We continue during this moment in world history to confront the existential threat to our planet of climate change, with the future of the planet and the lives of our children and grandchildren hanging in the balance. And then on top of all of that, we have lived through a violent insurrection in the nation's capital against our democracy, and we are seeing today a strong right-wing movement toward authoritarianism. That's the moment that we are living in. Today in Kentucky, in Vermont, and throughout our country, over half of our people are living paycheck to paycheck. This is the wealthiest nation in the history of the world, yet half of our people are working so hard, and at the end of the week, they've got nothing to show for it. And we got millions of other people in Vermont and Kentucky who are working for starvation wages. And on top of all of that, we have over 90 million of our people who are uninsured who are underinsured and cannot go to a doctor when they get sick. And 1 out of 5 Americans, unbelievably, cannot afford to purchase the prescription drugs their doctors prescribe. How insane is that? Despite an extremely competitive global economy, hundreds of thousands of working class young people are unable to afford college, and many millions more are struggling with outrageous levels of student debt. In America today, as we speak, well over 500,000 of our fellow citizens are homeless, sleeping out on the streets. Gentrification is sweeping the country, driving working class people away from the neighborhoods they grew up in. 18 million households are spending 50% or more of their limited incomes on rent and mortgages. And millions of other Americans are worried about being evicted and thrown out of their apartments or their homes. Unbelievably, in the United States of America during this last year, we have seen working families all across this country, including my own city of Burlington, Vermont, waiting in car lines for emergency food packages to feed their families. It was really stunning to me. Within a mile of where I live, long line of cars of people who have never been in this position before, having to get emergency food packages to feed their kids. In terms of education, millions of our young people, including my 7 grandchildren, have been forced to miss class because of the pandemic and the unprecedented disruption of education in this country. And think what that means to the young people, not only in their loss of academic credit, but in their isolation, their inability to be with their friends. And a lot of kids are suffering today in so many ways because of that. And let's be frank, this past year has been by far the worst and most painful year in the modern history of our country. That's been the simple reality. But in the midst of all that, another point that I want to make to you, it's important that you know this, is that not everybody has been hurting in this country. While tens of millions of Americans have been living in economic desperation, the wealthiest people in this country have become obscenely richer. And it's important that we understand that. During this horrific pandemic, 650 billionaires in America, it's not a lot of people, it's less than the number of people probably who are here right now. 650 billionaires have seen their wealth increase by more than $1 trillion. And again, we don't talk about this for obvious reasons. You don't talk about it in the media. We don't talk about it in Congress. But we have a worse level of income and wealth inequality today than we've had since the 1920s. In America today, 2 people now own more wealth than the bottom 40% of our nation, while the top 1% now owns more wealth than the bottom 92%. Got that? 1% owns more wealth than the bottom 92%, and that gap between the very, very rich and everybody else is growing wider. Brothers and sisters, this is a pivotal moment in American history, and the decisions we make now will impact the future of this planet and the future of our kids and our grandchildren. In the coming months, we have a fundamental decision to make. We have it to make it in Congress. We have it to make it in Louisville, in Burlington, all over this country. Will we create a government, an economy, and a society that works for all of us and not just the 1%? Or will we continue the drift toward oligarchy and authoritarianism, in which a small number of incredibly wealthy and powerful billionaires own and control a significant part of the economy and exert enormous influence over the political life of our country? That is the fundamental question of our time, and you and I know how we've got to answer that question. I'm here in Louisville today not just because Mitch McConnell is a Republican or the leader of the Republican Party in the Senate. I'm here today because Mitch McConnell is working overtime to represent the needs of the wealthy and the powerful and to undermine the needs of working families. To undermine the needs of the elderly, the children, the sick, and the poor. Now, I'm proud to tell you that as chairman of the Senate Budget Committee, I worked hard with President Biden and the Democratic leadership to pass the American Rescue Plan. As you know, that legislation provided $1,400 in direct payment to every working class adult in this country and their children as well. And I want you to think about it, because the rich may not appreciate it. You know, if you got millions of dollars, what's a few $1,000s? But if you are a struggling family in Kentucky or Vermont, and you got 2 kids, and you got a check for $5,600 in the middle of an economic downturn, that means a lot. That's life and death. And I'll tell you what else we did. For too many years, we have ignored the plight of children in America. Every American should be embarrassed that we have the highest rate of childhood poverty of almost any major country on earth. Disgraceful. This legislation will cut childhood poverty in half in America. And we do that by providing a tax credit of up to $3,600 that is directly benefiting over 1 million children in Kentucky alone. That legislation that we passed, the American Rescue Plan, is substantially reducing hunger in America. It is providing an extra $300 a week in unemployment benefits to more than 100,000 Kentuckians alone who have lost their jobs through no fault of their own. That legislation is preventing millions of families from being thrown out of their homes and onto the streets. And I am proud to tell you that the American Rescue Plan is preventing over 24,000 coal miners and Teamsters here in Kentucky from seeing their pensions slashed by up to 60%. promises were made to those workers that when they got old, they would have a pension. And years ago, Congress reneged, broke that promise. And I'm happy to tell you we have restored that promise to those workers. I'm happy to tell you that we doubled funding for community health centers all across this country. We tripled funding for after-school programs and summer programs for the kids. And much, much more. I'm proud of all of that. Very proud as chairman of the Budget Committee. But what I am not proud to tell you is that Mitch McConnell led the effort against that bill. And not only voted against it, he was able to convince every Republican in the Senate and the House to oppose it. We passed that bill after 16 hours of debate at 5 o'clock in the morning, when Vice President Harris cast the tie-breaking vote. And I want the American people to remember, when they hear some Republicans touting this or that part of the American Rescue Plan, not one Republican voted for it. We did it alone. And let's be clear, it's not just the American Rescue Plan that Mitch McConnell opposed. As we speak, Senator McConnell is leading the effort against the long-term structural changes that working people in Kentucky, in Vermont, and throughout our country desperately need. He is leading the effort against raising the minimum wage to $15 an hour. He is leading the effort against universal child care, paid family and medical leave, and making it easier for workers to join unions. He is leading the effort against H.R. 1, legislation fundamental to preserving our democracy, legislation which will put an end to the outrageous voter suppression we're seeing all over this country. Legislation which will make it easier, not harder, for people to vote, and legislation which will finally get big money out of politics. And this I will never forget. On New Year's Eve, Mitch McConnell blocked legislation I was offering to provide working-class Americans with a $2,000 direct payment because he claimed it was socialism for the rich. And that's what he said. Of all people in the world to say that. Now, this is a senator who had no problem giving a $129 million tax refund to Amazon as a result of the 2017 tax bill that he championed. It's a man who had no problem giving the Charles Koch family, you know who the Koch brothers are? Well, Charles Koch family received that's a family worth $126 billion. It's a family that's a major contributor to the Republican Party. They got a $1.4 billion tax break. In Mitch McConnell's world, if you are a multi-billionaire campaign contributor, it's okay to receive a $1.4 billion tax break. But if you are a working class person, apparently it's not acceptable to get the help you desperately need. If you are a teacher or a construction worker who makes $75,000 a year, A $2,000 direct payment is, according to McConnell, socialism for the rich. Well, the good news is that McConnell lost that fight. We won it. And the result of that is that household income in America is now surging, and we are moving to rebuild this shattered economy. Working class adults and their kids got the full $2,000 direct payment that they deserved, and which is helping to rebuild our economy. But when we look at Senator McConnell and his Republican ideology, it's not just what he is doing now, it's what he has done in the recent past. Under Trump, he led the effort to try and take away health care from up to 32 million Americans, and to substantially raise the premiums of older Americans by repealing the Affordable Care Act. Now, can you imagine? We are the only major country on earth not to guarantee health care to all. 90 million are uninsured and underinsured, and McConnell's solution to that crisis is to throw over 30 million people off the health care they have. At a time of massive wealth and income inequality, Mitch McConnell led the effort to provide $1 trillion in tax breaks to the 1% and large corporation. He led the effort, and he was the leader of this, to allow billionaires and corporations to buy elections through his strong advocacy of Citizens United, the disastrous Supreme Court decision. Mitch McConnell was the congressional leader in that effort. Now, the question, I think, that people should be asking is, why is Mitch McConnell doing what he does? How does it happen that Senator McConnell, representing a struggling working-class state, is working overtime to block legislation that would improve the lives of so many working-class people in Kentucky, while he is doing everything that he can to make the richest people in America even richer? How does that happen? And the answer is pretty simple. Follow the money. About it. Over the course of his career, and by the way, Mitch McConnell is not alone in this. I don't want to suggest for a moment that he is unique. Many Republicans doing the same, and some Democrats do as well. But over his career, Senator McConnell has received huge campaign contributions from Wall Street banks like Goldman Sachs, Citigroup, JP Morgan Chase, from health insurance companies like Blue Cross, Blue Shield, United Healthcare, and Humana, from pharmaceutical companies like Eli Lilly and Pfizer, from fossil fuel companies like Koch Brothers Industries and Marathon Petroleum, and of course, from Walmart and the NRA. And what do these huge corporations and special interest groups have in common? Why is this such a significant issue? And the answer is they are united in opposing raising the minimum wage to a living wage. And surprise, surprise, so does Mitch McConnell. These corporations oppose guaranteeing health care to all as a human right. So does Mitch McConnell. They oppose taking any significant action to lower the outrageous cost of prescription drugs in America. So does Mitch McConnell. They oppose passing any legislation of significance to combat climate change. So does Mitch McConnell. The NRA has given over $1.2 million in campaign contributions to Senator McConnell, and they oppose virtually every piece of gun safety legislation that has ever been introduced. And what do Senator McConnell's campaign contributors support? They support huge tax breaks for the rich and large corporations. They support deregulating Wall Street, and they strongly supported the Wall Street bailout. They support cutting Social Security, Medicare, and Medicaid. In other words, and this is the important point, Mitch McConnell's top campaign contributors want to do exactly the opposite of what the American people want and need. And so does Mitch McConnell. And so the question is, do we have officials in Washington who obey the dictates of their wealthy campaign contributors, or do we have members of Congress who stand with the working class of this country? That is the issue. Well, it will not surprise any of you to know that I view the world a little bit differently than does Mitch McConnell. Just a little bit. I believe that it is time to restore faith in the American people's belief that government can work for them and not just the few. And what does that mean in concrete terms? It means that we must raise the minimum wage to a living wage of $15 an hour. It means that whether Senator McConnell likes it or not, now is the time to create an economy and a government that works for all of us, not just the few. It means that we have got to understand that health care is a human right, not a privilege. And that we have got to guarantee health care to all through a Medicare for all single-payer program. It means that we have got to provide at least 12 weeks of paid family and medical leave. If the pandemic has taught us anything, it is that health care is a human right, not an employee benefit. It means taking on the greed of the pharmaceutical industry and substantially reducing the cost of prescription drugs. The American people cannot continue to pay, by far, sometimes 10 times more, for the same drugs that people abroad are paying. It means that what we must do is what every other major country does, negotiate prescription drug prices through Medicare with the pharmaceutical industry. It means making public colleges, universities, trade schools, and HBCUs tuition-free and canceling student debt for working families. If we are going to have the best educated workforce in the world, we cannot continue to punish an entire generation of young Americans with a lifetime of student debt. It means making pre-kindergarten, pre-K, and child care universal and available to every family in America. You know, some of my Republican colleagues think we're living in the 1950s where Dad went to work and Mom stayed home with the kids. Hey, guess what? That world has changed a little bit. Mom is out working now because she wants to and because she has to. And we must guarantee that every mom and dad in this country knows that when they go to work, their kids have quality, affordable child care. We must grow the trade union movement, make it easier for workers to join unions so they can negotiate for better wages, benefits, and working conditions. It means that we must make it easier, not harder, to vote and prevent billionaires from buying politicians by moving to public funding of elections. And right now, and you're going to hear a lot about it in the coming weeks as we move forward on a new piece of legislation, we must demand that the wealthiest Americans and most profitable corporations start paying their fair share of taxes. It is unacceptable that we continue to allow profitable corporations like Nike and Federal Express to make billions of dollars in profits and yet pay nothing in net federal income taxes over the past 3 years. Not acceptable. Warren Buffett, one of the richest guys in America, reminds us that working class people pay an effective tax rate that is higher than billionaires pay. Not acceptable. It means passing legislation to create humane immigration reform and a path toward citizenship. We can no longer tolerate children in this country, and I've met many of them all over this country, living in fear that one day their parents will no longer be at home when they come back from school. It means ending systemic racism in America. And creating real criminal justice reform and ending the disastrous so-called war on drugs. Yes, we must legalize marijuana in every state in this country and expunge marijuana arrest records. We must abolish private prisons and detention centers and end cash bail. No more profiting off of locking people up and throwing them in jail. And that is some of what our progressive agenda is about. Much more, but that's some. And yes, if Republicans refuse to work with us, if Senator McConnell and Republicans in the Senate continue their strategy of obstructionism, it means passing a progressive agenda through the Senate with 51 votes instead of 60 by using budget reconciliation. And I say that as chairman of the Senate Budget Committee. The American people are hurting. They want action. They want action now, and we've got to deliver for them. And when my Republican colleagues complain about our use of reconciliation, let me remind them of this. When Mitch McConnell was the majority leader, he used the reconciliation process to pass trillions of dollars in tax breaks, primarily for the top 1% and multinational corporations. He used reconciliation to drill for oil in the Arctic National Wildlife Refuge. Further, he was able to confirm 3 right-wing Supreme Court justices over a very short period of time by a simple majority vote. In my view, if Senator McConnell could use the reconciliation process to give tax breaks to billionaires, we can use that same process to stand up for the working families of this country. My friends, the difference in ideology between Senator McConnell and myself, between the Republican Party and the progressive movement, is not a question of big government versus small government. That's not what it's really about. It is a question of whose interests the government represents. It's a question of whether you fight for the needs of the wealthy and large corporations who fund your campaigns, or whether you fight for the needs of working families, many of whom, black and white and Latino, Asian American, Native Americans, are facing today economic desperation. The choice is very clear. If you believe in a vibrant democracy and not oligarchy or authoritarianism, if you believe that all Americans are entitled to economic security and that we must stand with the working families of this country, if you believe that all people, regardless of race, country of origin, or sexual orientation, are entitled to equal justice, if you believe in environmental sanity and combating climate change, the choice could not be clearer. Let us go forward and build the progressive movement and create a government that works for all, not just powerful special interests. Thank you very much.